We have to aspire to something more than the great American dream, which is bullshit. It's the great bullshit dream. Listen to my song, The Great American Dream. It's all there. It's all there. And then I wrote in the 70s, Wake Up America. The same things I said in that song in the 70s are happening right now. Right now. And if it would have got out on the waves and everybody would have listened to it, the tribulation may have been avoided. Because consciousness and energy uplifts everything. And if more people would have raised their consciousness, the quantum leap would have happened. But it's not going to happen. And they didn't want that music to get out there. Wake up, America. The enemy is already here. It's living inside you, the darkness of Dio, manifesting the evil self-will.
My name is Jackie, and I'm 48 years old, and I'm a teacher and a mother. And I was born in Flint, Michigan. I now live near Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And what was your cosmic name?
Shalette.
Shalette, right.
Jackie, who asked us not to use her last name, joined Gabriel's community with her family in 1995. She left with her daughter 4 years later, while her husband Arlen remained. The interview you're about to hear was conducted by me and my executive producer, Kay Gerard, in Kalamazoo.
So that's part of the, I would say, initiation process of being there, is getting your cosmic name, which often comes during the transmission that Gabriel gives you, which is supposedly, channeling spiritual truth about you. My name was Shalette, was given in this transmission. And, they will say your cosmic name is like reflective of your higher self, or like a way to kind of like, leave your lower self behind and become a new person, etc. So, in reality, it's to divorce you from your past.
So how did you first become aware of the GCCA?
I learned about it through the Intentional Communities Directory, which is a book put out by the Federation for Intentional Communities, which is an organization that's still around today. So they promote this cult. They're still encouraging people to go there by allowing them to have a space in their directory.
Pollution, exploitation, isolation, disparity, symptoms of a society out of control. What if we could live differently? It turns out over 100,000 people already are in eco-villages, communes, and communities of all kinds around the world. How can you find these communities? The answer, the Communities Directory.
We weren't even really looking for something spiritual. We were interested in growing food, having a place to like raise our daughter and school her in like a different way than the mainstream, like natural things, I guess you'd say. Not like the spiritual part was just kind of like happened later, but it wasn't why we went there, because we had a whole list of intentional communities we were going to visit. A lot of them were based on like organic gardening, that kind of thing, and Aquarian Concepts at the time, they were called Aquarian Concepts before they changed their name. They claimed that they were also interested in farming, and to some extent they were, but now I see that was more of a hook, or a lure, or a trap, I would even say, than what they really care about.
You had said you were sort of recruited by Gabriel to be a part of his band.
When we sent them a photo of ourselves, which is just like the two of us, me and my husband at the time, Steve, in a garden with our baby daughter, and just kind of a letter of interest, like we're thinking about visiting this summer. And then at some point we started to talk to Salinas on the phone, who's their lawyer and also just general administrative person. And she was like really excited because somewhere when we've been writing back and forth letters, I had said that I play the piano. And she said something to me like, oh, Gabriel was really interested when he saw you play the piano because right now he's auditioning for a keyboard player for his band, and he thinks you might be destined to do this. And so the sooner you can get down here to audition, the better, because we're doing this right now. And so we changed our plans for the summer and ended up going there first instead of last, which is what we were going to do. And then because of her kind of urging us, like we had to come for these auditions. And then our plan originally was to come back to Michigan and I was going to finish my degree. I was almost done with my teaching degree. I had one more semester. But Salinas also on the phone, I can clearly remember her saying, oh, that won't be important. You won't need a degree here. Degrees aren't important. You won't need to finish that in the coming new world. Like degrees won't matter, blah, blah, blah. So it was all about just getting us there as soon as she could, and just kind of encouraging us to just kind of leave everything else behind. And once we got there, it was like, it's not safe to leave here. Even when we were like considering joining, going through kind of the intro process, I had said to them, like, my best friend's wedding is in Texas in October. We first came there in June, 95. And like I said, well, even if we join this, like, I just want to make sure I'm going to this wedding in October, I'm her maid of honor, etc. And they said, oh yes, of course, that's fine, blah, blah, blah. But then, as the wedding came closer, Gabriel started saying, oh no, it's not safe to travel. There's so many earth changes coming. And still, like you said, he has the wisdom, he has the discernment, he is the highest, being on the planet.
Jackie was a victim of the old-fashioned bait and switch. She wanted to join an intentional community, but when she joined, she was hearing it was the end of the world. She might die if she strayed too far from the community, and you just have to wonder why she didn't flee at that point.
They do a really good job of, the whole process. I mean, it's like down to a science of how they love bomb you and like, you're such an important person. It's not, yes, we said he's the most important, but you're also important, and you can get even more important if you, stay there and keep doing things the way you're supposed to do. If you keep along with the program, you're going to like, when the new world comes, Gabriel will be the emperor, but you'll be like the mayor of a small town. He would say that. That was one of his little speeches. Yeah. Like each one of you here, there's only 100 of you. Like you'll be like a mayor of a small town or governor of a state or blah, blah, blah. He would like dole out power to people, which, I don't know that really interested me, but like, I'm sure it did other people, but like the music was like what interested me. Like I think different people have their hooks. Like for me, it was the music. Like I liked playing the keyboard in the band. It was fun, to some extent, except for when Gabriel was screaming at us.
I can't compromise to be a star. Well, that's not what life is about. I don't want to be heard just to be heard. I want people to change the world, help change the world.
Most of the time I was there, I was working like 5 to 6 days a week, and eventually I lived there and just like had a little mat on the floor in the office, so I was just pretty much there 24/7. I was typing out these transcripts of Gabriel's teachings and just other like, office work, typing, memos, etc. Like the year of 1997, 1998, that's when I went to visit his house. So that was around, probably right after everybody gave up their money. I can't remember the exact timeline of that, but he lived like a king. Yeah. And we were living like the worst poverty I've ever lived. Like, for whatever reason, like, I earned this higher level of trust, got to go to his house. And I'm, meanwhile, living with these kids. My dad called it the orphanage when he went to visit, because that's what it was. It was like a bunch of kids without their parents. And then I lived there and some other people lived there that were in charge of them. Every morning we made this giant pot of oatmeal. My daughter still won't eat oatmeal, because that's all we ever have for breakfast, like this huge, sticky, disgusting pot of oatmeal that would then be put in the fridge and then taken out, added some milk, and reheated the next day, like the gloopiest, gloppiest, grossest oatmeal you can imagine. No fresh fruit. Like, it was like Little House on the Prairie on there if, like, somebody came with, like, an orange or an apple that they got from somewhere, because they didn't go to the store. We couldn't go to the store to buy food, and they claim, oh, you're getting the stuff from the garden, but at that time there was hardly like anything there. Like, we'd get occasionally like some greens from there or something, or some like scraggly looking carrots, but of course we didn't get any fruit. And then I go over to Gabriel's house. He literally has like cases of Perrier water stacked up. That's what he drinks. He has these gourmet little, stinky cheeses and meats in his fridge. I threw one out one time, like, because I thought it was just like a moldy piece of cheese. And like, he got really mad at me because I said, Santine just bought me that gourmet cheese. I can't believe you threw that out. Why didn't you ask someone? Why did you throw that? Like, well, it looked really moldy and gross. Like, I just thought it was moldy cheese.
Jackie fled the community with her daughter in August 1999 and returned to Michigan for college. Her ex-husband, who was still in Arizona, then filed for custody. They faced off in court a year later. The hearing was originally scheduled for an hour, but it turned into a 2-day-long ordeal. And everybody was shocked when, at the last minute, Jackie's ex-husband gave up all legal rights to his child.
Steve gave up his daughter legally to my husband, signed the papers to have her adopted by him, which, for whatever reason he did that, or why, I should say, whatever reason Gabriel chose to have that happen, because nobody makes their own decisions, no matter how much they pretend. I mean, it could be to save the $47 a month of child support he was paying me, that Gabriel would have someone give away their child to save $47 a month. That would be nothing. He'd do it to save $5 a month. And I, at one point, decided, like, even though I do think that kids should be with their dad, that I have to, that place is so bad that I have to, like, oppose that at every turn. But I would say, you can come and visit her here as much as you want. And it even said that in our agreement, like, you can come here and visit her. He rarely did. I think he came once or twice.
Our husbands and wives.
Daddy.
What? You get some...
Y otros en Mi Mejor Amigo, este domingo solo por Univisión.
Welcome back. I'm Brian Ross in New York. Let's get more on this now by turning to Rick Ross, one of the country's leading experts on what are called destructive cults and controversial groups. Mr. Ross, thank you for being here.
I've testified as a court expert in a custody case in Yavapai County when the group was situated in Sedona. And in that situation, I learned that they believe that the family, the nuclear family as we know it, is really not what they're in support of. So they support a kind of group family where children are raised through a completely different process, where their loyalty is not to mom and dad, but to Gabriel and to the organization. So they're raised as a collective.
Do you find that in custody cases that the court kind of does not understand the dynamic or doesn't really understand what's going on?
Well, that's why I am brought in as a court expert, is to make it understandable. You know, what is the structure of a destructive cult? What are the dynamics of the group? And I basically have boiled this down to 3 core characteristics as identified by Robert J. Lifton, a psychiatrist who taught at Harvard Medical School and wrote a paper called Cult Formation. And it's basically, number one, that there is this authoritarian dictator who runs the group, who becomes an object of worship and has no meaningful accountability or transparency. And the group is personality driven and defined by this leader. Number two, that the leader uses coercive persuasion, thought reform techniques, and influence principles to gain undue influence over the people in the group. And then finally, that the leader uses that undue influence to exploit and ultimately do harm to the people. And this varies by degree from group to group. The most extreme groups, by the way, have compounds. And the reason for that is the more that the group demands or expects from the individual, in my experience, the more the group needs isolation to reinforce its will. Because, when you're asking people to just do what the outside world would say is pretty crazy, you need to have the bubble reinforced. You need to eliminate an outside frame of reference, accurate feedback from anyone else, cut the communication so that people have nothing but the group and other members of the group to create their sense of reality, or what Robert Cialdini in his book Influence would call a social proof. And what a cult leader does is they create what I would call a false social proof. And that is that when I look around me to see, is this real, what I'm being told? Does this make sense? The feedback I'm getting is orchestrated. The group members are all fully indoctrinated and controlled by the leader, and they're echoing what the leader wants them to say. And so when I look to them for a social proof to get a sense of, is this real? I'm getting a false reading. I'm getting a false social proof. And so, in my opinion, people like Gabriel create compounds for this very purpose, so that people are unplugged from reality and plugged into a false social proof.
Some things that have come up quite a bit talking to ex-members are things which seem to me to fit into what you're saying. Specifically, when people join, they get renamed. The family gets split up. They're cut off from their families. How does that play into?
Well, what cult leaders do, and it's a pattern, and it's a thread that consistently pulls through so many groups ad nauseum, is they break down a person's sense of individual identity. So you dump your old name, you dump your family, you dump your friends, and you create a new persona, which is dictated by the group and by the leader. So in that way, the leader breaks down your sense of who you are and merges you into a new sense of identity that is controlled by that leader. And so they also want you to burn your bridges. They encourage you to be very harsh with your family if necessary, and your old friends, because they want you in very extreme groups that are very isolated to have a sense of, there's nowhere for me to go. I've burned all my bridges. There's no one out there for me. It's the group and only the group. I have nothing else.
And what are you hearing about Gabriel and his group specifically?
That Gabriel is very rich, that he controls millions of dollars, that the people work for little, if any, meaningful compensation. And in my experience, when you have free labor, you can build up quite a lot of equity in property and in businesses. And so what I've heard over the years is Gabriel just getting richer and richer, that is controlling more and more money, more and more assets, and that he has become increasingly harsh as he's grown older, which I think is typical of some extreme cult leaders, that they are affected by the bubble effect themselves. That is, that they're constantly being praised, they're constantly being fawned on and obeyed without question, and they become delusional. They disconnect from the reality of who they were or are, and they believe their own mythology. They believe, yes, I am the Messiah. I am in communication with beings from another planet. I am the exclusive channel for a higher power, because there's no one there to say, come on, Tony, come on, it's me. You're from Pittsburgh. Get over it. You know, there's just no accurate feedback. I think Gabriel's all about Gabriel. He's very narcissistic, in my opinion, very self-absorbed, and he likes to dominate the group, and he enjoys the good life that he lives. I mean, being waited on hand and foot, having everyone in the compound adoring and basically worshiping him. I mean, he has become an object of worship for the people that live there, in my opinion. And so I think that's what he's all about. Not so much doomsday, doom and gloom, weapons, violence. He's about living the good life. You know, he's Tony from Pittsburgh.
Sal says he thinks the book's called, what do you think it's called, Sal?
Urantia.
Urantia?
I know that can't be right.
No, that's not it.
I'm looking at it now, Howard. He's saying it's called the Urantia Book. It's an interpretation of how the Earth was created. You read that, Sal?
Yeah, I'm reading it.
Sal.
It basically, there was a bunch of guys back in the day, spirits came down, aliens came down, and they explained how the Earth was created.
Let me ask you something. If you're going to read a book, why would you read up a Bubemeister book? Why don't you read a book on history or something that was based in science?
This is history. This is tied into science. This is no Bubemeister stuff.
Howard,
Bubemeister?
They don't even know who wrote it. There's nobody claims to have written it.
Yeah, remember when Klaatu were the Beatles?
Yes.
I think they wrote it. Sal, what is the
Howard,
book? Tell me the
change
book.
your life.
All right,
Read
tell
it.
me what it is.
Well, my name is Marion Hughes. I'm 74 years old. I live on the Big Island of Hawaii. I discovered the Urantia Book, also called the Urantia Revelation, to those of us that read it, in 1968.
The Urantia Book is a popular spiritual and philosophical text that Gabriel uses as the basis of his own teachings. It was first published in the United States in 1955. Ken recently spoke with two well-known members of the Urantia Book community, Marion Hughes, the president of the Hawaii Urantia Local Association, and Pato Banton, a well-known Urantian and reggae artist.
Urantia is the name of our planet. Urantia, Urantia. It means your place in the universe. And so every planet is given a name and a number. We are the 606th planet in this section of the galaxy. And there are many, many inhabited worlds, millions of inhabited planets. And so all that is discussed and explained in the Urantia Book. We don't have a church. We don't have a hierarchy or any priests or popes or prophets or anything. We just have a study group where you get together with other like-minded Urantia Book believers and you study the book together. There's been a lot of offshoots, not a lot, but there have been offshoots like this crazy Tony guy who has decided to take, some of these extraterrestrial type teachings and become a cult leader.
I do not want to repeat what so many godly astronomers and others on the internet say to as planet 7X, also called Nibiru, which is now being seen through telescopes and sometimes even the naked eye. As it comes closer to the Earth, larger mass destruction will occur in various places, with increased and larger earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tidal waves, and sinkholes.
Does the book speak about end times at all?
No,
No.
not at all. In fact, the book is basically says that we will evolve, that things that the revelation of God in and through Jesus shall not fail. That we will get this planet together. I mean, yes, the Urantia Book says Jesus will return, but it doesn't say anytime soon. And it says, in fact, it says it's going to be a long way off.
This one is dedicated to the fallen angel, Lucifer. Easy, Satan.
Okay, well, my name is Pato Banton. I'm a Grammy-nominated recording artist from the UK, and I have been reading the book now for 30 years.
When and how did you come across Gabriel of Urantia or Tony of Sedona?
I think it was through social networks and through some Urantia readers that had recently started to get involved with them. And I heard about their community living. That's what was attractive. Me and my wife decided to go down there and visit them.
And how was that first visit?
Very, very nice. It was exciting. Gabriel and Neon invited us over to Gabriel's private quarters, and me and my wife sat down with him for about 3 hours, really, I think it was, and had a great, long conversation.
According to the Urantia Book, there have been 5 truly significant revelations given by God to mankind. The 4th was the revelation of Jesus Christ as laid out in the Bible, and the 5th is the Urantia Book itself. Gabriel calls his teachings CFER, or the Continuing 5th Epical Revelation. This is a combination of things from the Urantia Book, as well as New Age concepts, Native American spirituality, and some apocalyptic Christianity.
I told him I would buy the books and I would study the books. And if I found the books to be true, if they resonated in my heart the way the Urantia Book resonated in my heart, that I would be willing to sell everything and join the community. I got the books, went back to Los Angeles, and I think about for 3 days straight, I read the books. I didn't hardly sleep. And at first, it was reading really good. And then I found a threat. If people knew about the community and didn't join them, that their soul would be at risk and that they may not wake up in the next life. So that was the first thing that rang an alarm bell for me.
When Pato determined that Gabriel's teachings didn't square with the Urantia Book, he put together a team to pore over the text of the Continuing 5th Epical Revelation. After a year of intense study, Pato says that he and his team found 21 items that contradict the Urantia Book. Then, in 2018, he took to YouTube with his findings.
But let's take a look at if this threat, if this technique of threatening people to come into a spiritual community is in harmony with the words of Christ. The Urantia Book says, or should I say Jesus states, never be guilty of such unworthy tactics as endeavoring to frighten men and women into the kingdom. Now that's definitely what Gabriel was doing in the CFER, and I don't think that's cool.
You know, I totally believe that the CFER is a fraud, and I believe that Gabriel of Sedona is a fraud. And, you know, the Dateline expose that is available on YouTube also exposes him as a liar and a fraud, and any new people are curious, I'm more than happy to help them, on their journey.
Gabriel, like many other cult leaders, claims spiritual authority because he has received certain truths from celestial entities. For the sake of argument, let's just assume that Gabriel isn't making this part of his story up. Like many gurus, Gabriel wants us to believe that these beings possess hidden knowledge and that they have nothing but good intentions. British occultist Aleister Crowley, who is familiar with this sort of mystical experience, offers this cautionary note. People, he writes, may be expected to get themselves into all those kinds of trouble which result from uncritical enthusiasms about the revelations which are made to them. It seems like Gabriel, doing the bidding of the voices in his head, has fallen into an old trap. He's not the first, and he won't be the last. This episode of The So-Called Prophet from Pittsburgh was edited by me, Joseph L. Flatley. It was written and recorded with the help of my executive producer, Kay Gerard. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, @PittsburghProphet.